Hello everyone. Hope you are well and staying safe in pandemic. So big thanks to DynamicsCon. This is a great opportunity and very amazing sessions coming forward. I'm hoping to see them all if I can, maybe back to back 48 hours, and I hope to get leaves from the office. So I'm Roma. I'm here in South Africa, Johannesburg. I'm Dynamics 365 consultant and moving towards Power Platform as well. That is my new tool which I play. On the screen, you can see my LinkedIn, Twitter, and WordPress profiles. I have started blogging as well, and you can reach out to me if you have any queries. More on my side, I like to break systems and applications. I like to know their limit. So that is kind of my area. Since I work with all the clients, they ask me all the questions like, Roma, what is the maximum performance it can do? How many quick things it can leave? Like, they want something more famous or more faster than a horse. Thank God nobody asked me that question before, but yeah. So I kind of break things like that. And I'm working into CRM space from CRM 2011 version, so that's quite long. Today, I'm going to tell you some quick tips that is based on my real life experience with a versatile client and very panic clients also, but I'm not chasing them, it's their job. From their marketing profiles, I'm going to share you how to make your go live a real success today. Based on my agenda, there are few things that I've categorized. Of course, it will vary on person to person, clients to client. So as for me, it will be how are your end users and the processes? What is the requirements and versus the spoon feeding? That's kind of an interesting session I'm looking forward to. Then the one person show will see what I have to share on that side. Trainings and manuals, of course, the boring stuff, and reporting and stats, which everyone would worry about. So moving on to the next slide. The first one, the end users and the processes. I have categorized my end users and into the team composition. So whether you are at on-site sitting with client or whether you are sitting at off-site where you don't have any visibility on your client structure, it is really very important to know what is your client composition. It will help you identify all the gaps that you might not have it directly. And the second phase is the processes. I believe making your go live is not just one day job, right? So you cannot make anything live at the end day and just make sure that it's gonna go ahead like a horse. No, you have to feed him from the beginning. So yeah, you would have to compulsorily know what is the existing processes. And when I say existing processes, it can be that they are moving from a manual system or they want to move from a legacy system. So based on that, let's talk about the client team composition. What I've seen is you mostly deal with a product owner for all your requirements. And this is just a small composition which I've shared. But yeah, your product owner will have a wide variety of team depending upon how different areas she work on. And she's the one who, you have given a BRS or for whom you are designing that system. So as per my experience here, I'm giving a short composition. So the product owner may not directly deal with you always. There will be always a team manager, which reports to product manager, and then he will have a team of end users. Those end users are the nothing but the actual people who are going to use that system when it goes live. And based on my experience, what I've always seen is you will get one end user who's very annoying. And he may not be annoying to everyone else, but yeah, he will keep irritating you, will keep bugging you for all those irritating questions. But mind it, those questions are going to be important and playing a major role when the system goes live. So let's keep an eye on that end user, which is annoying, and I'll come back to it on the next slide. So over here, as I said, the process is also important. Let's talk about a manual process. Let's assume when you are going live, okay? Before that, they had nothing to do. They were working on maybe Excel, Notepad, or just Word documents. So basically, you have to tell them each and everything. So you would also have to understand the entire manual process. It can be as lame as copy pasting tab names in the Excel sheet, but yeah, you would know because that is important that you and your entire team know how their manual process work. Irrespective of whether they will tell you or not, you must observe. So observation is a key in a manual process. But on the second side, what if they are migrating from a legacy system? In that case, you must know how their legacy application work. So it can be as simple as number of clicks in their legacy system. Okay, what are the screen size? How many fields they have in their legacy system? For example, if I explain a scenario of dynamic CRM, you might not be able to give them all those fields in one screen, and you might have to do multiple clicks. But trust me, you must know all the legacy systems also, and if possible, have your team go through that legacy system process as well. That is important. So based on both of the processes, whether it's a manual process or it's a legacy system process, I would urge you to share that and have all the key points shared with your development team members also. Though they should also know what is the process by which the client and the end users are going through, because this would also determine how to move when you go on a UAT, or maybe when you go on the trainings, because before training you must know each and every point. So get to know what is the comfort zone of your client, what is the key pain areas, and whether your product at the end, so let's say whether CRM will be able to tackle that pain areas or not. In here, why I'll say developer and testing team is on understanding the key points, because I've seen the mindset of both the developers and the testing team are quite different. Trust me, I'm a developer so far, and what I've seen is the testing may have a different vision that developer will not get it. So for example, let's say I'm creating a campaign, okay, and when I attach a campaign activity, I'm selecting a channel SMS, but while selecting a vendor, I'm getting other vendors also which are not applicable for SMS channel. So a developer might not think from that point, but a tester will surely note that point, that listen, I'm selecting SMS channel, then vendor should also be filtered. So all those points are also important, that the tester should also look at all the manual process. If not directly by the end users, then you must understand as a person who's sitting with your client, note each and every point and tell to your development team as well as testing team. They should also know what they are getting yourself into before developing or before testing, so that they know what to test, what not to test, what is the performance areas, what are not the performance areas, and all that. So that is all on this side. Let's move to the next process. Requirement versus spoon feeding. I have a good fight always here, because this is a section where we talk about scope creeping, but I'll tell you, not everything is scope creep. So over here, I've categorized my session into two different parts. One is the BRS and user stories. That is, of course, and always a major section. And second, the requirements not provided, where I'm calling it spoon feeding. This is my best part, because I love fighting with the development team, and they love fighting me back too. But to be honest, that's not bad. You must fight with your development team. Otherwise, you will not get to know the opinions or perspective of each other, which is very important. Trust me. So on the requirement side first, because that's where the project starts, you usually get a requirement list, mostly in an Excel document, and you do a checkbox that yes, this can be matched in your system, you cannot do this in your system. So requirements, as and when you get requirements, before even going to user stories, you must question the 5 W's, which is where, why, who, when, and what, and leave the how part, because that is being taken care by the development team, including architects, of course. So you must know where that requirement is required, if at all the requirement is required or not. Why that requirement is relevant? Because I have seen personally myself as a person have jotted down a requirement. This person is usually BA, but yes, it depends, scene to scene. So the BA would write a requirement which is not even important, and you can easily see why you want to do this, because you would have to save your costing, you would have to save your money, your time, and you would want a system to be MVP ready. When I say MVP, it is the minimum viable product ready. So yes, you must understand each and every point of the requirements. where it is required, who wants it. Sometimes what I've seen is, especially in my team, I'm not blaming someone, but yeah, no offense. Somebody said, I need this requirement, but listen, not all the team wants that requirement. So just for one person, we cannot go ahead and develop it, right? That makes no sense to me. So you must also understand who needs it, which part of the team needs it, and why does it require. When it is needed is also an important. The when part is mostly required for prioritization. So which requirement is needed when defines what should be go in the development cycle or not. And moving on, what? That again, the what is again dependent on the whole cycle of the 4Ws. So, and how is also taken care by the development team. So we can leave the how part for now, but yes, you must know all the 5Ws before jotting your requirements into user stories. And then you must always review your requirements. When I say review requirements, before doing, or maybe let's say you are doing user stories, you created user stories. So review the requirements, ask them questions. You must irritate the end users and your client, and they must say that, Roma, you ask so many questions. They must say that. If they don't say that, you are doing something or you're missing something. You're not doing something wrong, but yeah, you're missing something. So yeah, you must understand each and every part of the requirement. On the other side, when I say spoon feeding, spoon feeding is mostly happens with the development team. So let's say I want to reduce the number of clicks. Let's say they are migrating from an existing process. The existing process in this case can be an Excel. So if they're migrating from Excel to a system or an application, let's say they're migrating from Excel to Dynamics CRM, you want the end user to have the process easy for them and not tough, because otherwise they're not going to use it. These end users are as long as using Excel for like 60 years. I have one of the Dynamics CRM client. She is 68 years old and she is using Dynamics CRM. I know how tough it was in the beginning. So yes, you would want to make it easy for them, and then you would have to fight it for her, for the end user. You must fight. If not everything will be given in the requirement document, and you have to make them understand. When I say them, it is the development team. You must make your development team understand that, listen, they will not give you each and everything requirement as a spoon feeding, right? As a consultant, it becomes our job to make the process easy for them, to reduce the number of clicks, and to lower the human intervention. It can be as simple as copy pasting. So for example, if I'm on a lead process and I have customized my lead form, and let's say I qualify a lead. So I don't have to copy paste my custom lead data to the opportunities. It should be done automatically. That is reducing clicks, right? As an end user, you don't want me to copy paste 10 fields which are new and not in the existing application and go and copy paste on the opportunity. No, sorry, that's time wasting. So we must know that reducing clicks also matters a lot. The person will not move back and go back to Excel world instead of being in the Dynamics CRM world. Trust me, in both the cases, energy is gone, but energy is more needed when you fight with the development team regarding the scope creep. You must make them understand that as a consultant, it is your job to make the life easy and not hectic. So sometimes if it is not a big scope creep, they can be taken care without the VRS, because not everything gonna be spoon fed as a requirement. You have to make the life easy for them, not the other way around. So that was my mantra for this one. Let's move on to the next. 1% show. What do you think about that? No, I didn't listen to you, but yeah, people have told me. So this is my case. I am alone in on site with my clients, and my entire team sits in India office. Okay, and making a go live easy or a success, it's a 1% show. People think about it, but let's see. Do you think so? What say? No, I'm not a Superman, and Superman has never worked alone, or maybe it has worked. I'm not here to say right or wrong, or not saying anything, not offending anything to a Superman fans, but yes, it's never one man show. Trust me, it's always a teamwork. So you would need your Justice League entire team, or maybe if you're a Marvel fan, you would need your entire team of Hulk and everyone else to do this. Superman, the job of the Superman would be, as the person sitting in on-site would have to make a protective shield alongside the development team and the testing team. It must not happen that, someone calling from on-site, skipping you and blaming your team. No, you must act as a shield always. But yes, a Superman will get tired, no doubt about it. But a Superman's job is to be a Superman. He's a superhero, but he's a human too. So you must also think about Superman, but not the less, it's always going to be a team's job. Trainings and manuals. That's what I think, always. If someone asks me, Roma, just go in that training, I will think, oh my God, I'm gonna sleep. That is the first feeling, trust me, anyone will get of any age. So training and manuals have got a very, a slight edge or a slight difference between them. Let's talk about manuals first. A manual is nothing but documents, as you all know. What else? But yeah, it's something that people would need, or whenever your system will go live, you will make it, or you will be asked to do it. This job is mostly done by a business analyst, or can be done by a technical people, and then the functional analyst or the business analyst will change the wordings, because a developer would make it too technical for the end users. So our manuals, trust me, are rarely opened or never opened. Are mostly black and white with screenshots, but yeah, they are black and white, so they are boring, and there are no cartoons in the manuals. So trust me, those are borings. Those manuals will only be get open by the first benchers. Remember, the toppers of the school or the college. Only those people will open the manuals. Or even if you share them the test environment details to plug and play before you go into a manual or training session with them, they won't open it. Only the toppers will. And I've seen this. Moving on the training session. A training is usually, I would say, to jot down into different days, and alternate days is always preferred by anyone, because not everyone wants to do a training on a daily basis, but yes, training do happens on a daily basis in real life. And note that you must have coffee in the training. Otherwise, everyone's gonna sleep, or will think about coffee in the training session. So few tips on trainings would be, if you want to have coffee or have to remove coffee or boring sessions from their mind, which is time taking, you must make your session very interactive. You can ask them questions. You can see if you went to the user guide or not. But yeah, on the trainings, I would say schedule trainings on alternate days. On the first half, people will avoid because they want to do their productive work. Trainings in my way should be in the second half, maybe maximum 1.5 hours, not more than that, because you will lose the focus of everyone. And remember, they will have their laptops with them. So you would not really know if they're attending the training, or they're doing a WhatsApp or Facebook, or they're actually listening to them, or actually listening to you, or they're doing their own work. So training and manuals do play a vital role, but make sure that you make them very interactive and not boring. So yeah, that's my take on trainings and manuals. And yes, don't forget, you would have to train them. Even if your training session, let's say, consists of four sessions and 1 hour each, so that's like 4 hours. So make sure that even after that, you have a brush up session. Maybe after 2 weeks of time, they would need that. Trust me. On the day of go live, when the system actually go live, they will also be in panic situation by the end users. They would need you support, so that you have to support them on the end day. You just can't say that, I gave them training for 4 hours and you just go and use it. No, it's not going to happen. If you want to make them a success, you would have to put an extra effort, being a superwoman or being a superman at the day of go live, that they must go through each and every stage. What you can do to help them, to help the end users, is you can get them coffee or chocolate or ice cream if they're not too gym friendly. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. Reporting and stats. I believe they should also be taken care in the part of training sessions, because even though they listen or they not listen to the beginning of the sessions, they will always focus on the reporting sections. This is where the KPI and their KRAs will come across. Okay. So what I've also seen is whenever the reporting the stats requirements, it depends whether the BRS includes the reporting and stats in the day one or not, or whether it is created at the later stage. I believe that every end user should also be included as a part of this requirement gathering session for the reporting, because what I've seen is product owners will, or the excos will need another level of reporting, right? But if I'm an end user and let's say my opportunities have just logged it, so I would like to see how my opportunities of the week um, have done so far, whether some of them got promoted or whether the opportunities were lost or gone. But as a product owner, I would not want to see my this week's report, right? I would focus on a month report. So depending upon the reporting and stats, you will have level of reporting requirements. And I believe for that, you must note each and every end users in your reporting session requirement, in your requirement session for the reporting. This is almost coming to an end of my session. There's a mantra which I do myself, and I keep my development team as well as my entire team in India to note. What I say is appreciate is an art. You must appreciate yourself because you have come a long way. What you will see is with the beginning of any project, what you were and what you have become by the time it went live is you are a changed person. You will always be a changed person. Learning is the only constant. So you must appreciate yourself. You have worked hard to achieve this, even if nobody tells you. I am telling you, appreciate is an art. You must appreciate yourself, and you must also appreciate your development team and your testing team. They have come a long way with you and have jotted down all your what should I tell you? They have been with you in every phase, even if you're moody, cranky phase of it. So yeah, appreciate even now and then. Appreciate even if it was a small work that was not done and they did it on your request. So appreciate always. Some of my extra mantras that I must tell you is be away from negativity and keep yourself hydrated. More often what you have seen is in whole process of getting requirements, getting user stories, fighting with development team, creating training manuals, attending those meetings, seminars, have those team meetings now is tough. So you must keep hydrated and you must stay away from negative people. Negative people will be everywhere. They will not appreciate you. They will only show you negative things or say negative things behind your back. So you must not listen to them. They don't know what you went through. They will not understand your perspective. And even if you try to explain them, it's useless. So leave it. You must stay away from negativity. Have a work-life balance. What I want to say is, if you're working from 8 to 5, maybe tell everyone at office that, listen, if you call me after 6 o'clock, I might not be able to receive it. Send me an email and I will look into it tomorrow. Or maybe if it's a P1 issue that you receive, only in that case, ask them to drop you a WhatsApp or call you urgently on the cell phone. Otherwise, don't even call. Don't pick up office calls. It is very important to have work-life balance. Keep your emotional and mental state healthy as well. This only does not require yoga or exercise. You can even go for a walk. You can eat ice creams if you like, or you can listen to music or some rock music, or you can see your movies. It depends what is your mantra for having an emotional and a mental state healthy. Okay. On the next side, on the team side, it's like always back your team in front of anyone. This is more on the Superman side. So you'd have to play a role of Superman always for your team. Even though if your team was wrong, you would have to protect them in front of everyone else, and you can have those discussions internally within the team. If a team has to be a second family, so a healthy team is a stronger team. And you must retrospect. But retrospect help us to understand what went wrong. Even though if you're on a client side or you're on a manager position, you can do things wrong. Trust me, I've seen this in office. Even in multiple office, my teams are frustrated and they just go on leave. I've getting calls from friends from different companies, from different projects. They say, Roma, I'm frustrated and we'll have to talk about it. So you must understand that you can also be wrong, and there is nothing wrong in it to say sorry. So you must retrospect. You must discuss openly about all the things that happened in a sprint or in a month cycle. What went wrong, what went right, and how to make improvements on this. There's nothing wrong in saying sorry. Last but not the least, keep reading, keep enjoying, and keep exploring. That was me. Thank you. I'm not tired, but yeah. That's again my story on the LinkedIn, Twitter, WordPress, and you can reach out to me if you have any queries. So that is it from my side, logging off. Bye. Take care.